Hey, everybody. A few songs from Beauty, old and new. There goes the baker with his tray like always, the same old bread and rolls to sell. Every morning just the same, since the morning that we came to this poor provincial town. Good morning, Belle. How does a moment last forever? How can a story never die? It is love we must hold on to. Never easy, but we try. Sometimes our happiness is captured. Somehow a time and place stands still. Love lives on inside our hearts and always will. Be our guest, be our guest. Put our service to the test. Tie your napkin around your neck, cherie, and we'll provide the rest. Soup du jour, hot hors d'oeuvre, where we only live to serve. Try the gray stuff, it's delicious. Don't believe me? Ask the dishes. They can sing, they can dance. If they're all Miss, this is France, and a dinner here is never second best. Go on, unfold your menu, take a glass, and then you'll be our guest. We are guests, be our guest. I was the one who had it all. I was the master of my fate. I never needed anybody in my life. I learned the truth too late. I'll never shake away the pain. I close my eyes, but she's still there. I let her steal into my melancholy heart. It's more than I can bear. Now I know she'll never leave me. Even as she runs away, she will still torment me, calm me, hurt me, soothe me, come what may. Wasting in my lonely tower, waiting by an open door. I'll fool myself, she'll walk right in. And as the long, long nights begin, I'll think of all that might have been, waiting here forevermore. Tale as old as time, true as it can be. Barely even friends, then somebody bends unexpectedly. Just a little change, small to say the least, both a little scared, neither one prepared. Beauty and the Beast, ever just the same, ever a surprise. Ever as before, ever just as sure as the sun will rise. Tale as old as time, tune as old as song. Bittersweet and strange, finding you can change, learning you were wrong. Certain as the sun, rising in the east. Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. Beauty and the Beast. Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. Beauty and the Beast. So for this next song, I'm gonna need some help, I think. I'm gonna ask some guys to come out here now.
Gaston, looking so down in the dumps. Every guy here'd love to be you, Gaston, even when taking your lumps. There's no man in town as admired as you. You're everyone's favorite guy. Everyone's awed and inspired by you. And it's not very hard to see why.
No one's slick as Gaston, no one's quick as Gaston, no one's neck's as incredibly thick as Gaston, as a as a manly.
I'll teach you this one, man.
Perfect up your paragons, your line. You can tell any Tom, Dick, or Stanley, and they'll tell you whose team they prefer to be on.
Who plays darts like Gaston? Who breaks hearts like Gaston?
Who's much more than the sum of his parts like Gaston?
As a specimen, yes, I'm intimidating.
My, what a guy that Gaston.
Thank you. I needed encouragement. Thank you, LeFou.
Well, there's no one as easy to bolster as you.
No one fights like Gaston, douses lights like Gaston.
In a wrestling match, nobody bites like Gaston.
When I hunt, I sneak up with my quiver.
Ooh.
And beasts of the field say a prayer. First, I carefully aim for the liver. Then I shoot from behind.
Is that fair?
I don't care.
No one hits like Gaston, matches wits like Gaston.
In a spitting match, nobody spits like Gaston.
I'm especially good at expectorating.
10 points
for Gaston.
When I was a lad, I ate 4 dozen eggs every morning to help me get large. And now that I'm grown, I eat 5 dozen eggs, so I'm roughly the size of a barge.
Who
Has brains like Gaston, entertains like Gaston.
Who can make up these endless refrains like Gaston? I use antlers in all of my decorating.
Say it again. Who's a man among men?
And then say it once more.
Who's a hero next door? Who's a super success? Don't you know? Can't you guess? Ask his friends and his 5 hangers on. There's just one guy in town who's got all of it down. And his name's G-A-S-T. I believe there's another T after the first. I can't remember because of this week's news cycle, which has been very distracting to me. Gaston! The genius.
Well done.
Good to see you.
This is an amazing cast for the film, and we're very excited to have them here. So without further ado, please help me welcome Gugu Mbatha-Raw, Josh Gad, Luke Evans, Emma Watson, Dan Stevens, Bill Condon, Audra McDonald, and welcome back to the stage, Alan Menkin.
Good.
Thank you all so much for being here today. Congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
Bill, I'm going to start with you. You know, the animated movie is, for so many people, their favorite film of all time.
Yes.
So when you approach adapting it for a live action, sort of what was the process for you?
Get over the terror first, I think, you know. But then, you know, you just start with that basic idea. You're going to take it into a new medium, which is live action. They're going to be actors. Emma's going to be playing a character on real locations who has to fall in love with the beast. So all the behavior, which is, you know, let's face it, an animated film is sort of, you know, a little more exaggerated, has to come into reality. And that once you start to investigate that, then you realize, wow, there are questions maybe you never asked before that you want to know about. How did Belle and Maurice wind up in this village where they're outsiders, you know? And that leads to then new songs, and suddenly you're creating something new.
Yeah, we had these discussions. For me, sorry, you didn't ask me the question, but when Bill came aboard, we had meetings about what we add, and one of the things we talked about the music box moment and Maurice and getting into the backstory of how Maurice and Belle came to the town, and backstory for the Beast, how he became such a cold and callous young man, and also trying to root ourselves much more in time and place, 18th century France. That really helped immensely.
Well, Alan, working off that, you know, this is one film of a myriad of films that you've contributed amazing music to. I mean, it's sort of impossible to capture how much you've given people, you know, with the work you've contributed to these films over the years. And I'm curious what you think it is about them that makes them such universal stories for so many people.
You mean all of them?
I mean, you can talk about this film specifically. Let's go one by one, Alan. We're going to get started.
I mean, when I first came to Disney, I got to say, I thought of Little Mermaid first and foremost as Howard Ashman and my follow-up to Little Shop of Horrors. We were still working in, you know, for me, working in musical theater. You know, these off Broadway guys coming and bringing our skills to Disney. We don't calculate beyond telling the story and serving the characters and trying to give each of these projects its own unique musical stamp. And beyond that, it's just storytelling. And, you know, there's no more collaborative form than musicals. So, you know, I know they call it musicals and I'm the composer, but the truth is, it's a director, it's a choreographer, it's a lyricist, it's a book writer, it's a composer, it's an orchestrator, it's an arranger, it's a lighting designer, it's everything put together. So I think I benefited a lot also from the Disney Association, obviously.
Absolutely. The films in general really speak to children in such a wonderful way. And Audra, I'm curious, as a parent, what do you like about what this Beauty and the Beast says to kids?
Many things, but one thing that was really important to me, I mean, I said yes the minute that Disney called, because you say yes when Disney calls. So if they told me to, you know, we were going to sell churros in the park, I'd be like, yeah, I'm there. You know, it doesn't matter, we'll do it. But knowing not only did it have this incredible creative team, but that Emma Watson was going to be Belle, and knowing how much Emma has affected girls of my daughter's age, and my daughter is someone who now asks for people to donate money to charities for her birthday gifts instead of presents, and that's because of you, Emma. And so knowing full well, it is. So knowing full well that Emma was going to make sure that Belle was somebody who was independent, who was strong, who was educated, who was sticking up for girls and women. And who does all the rescuing in the film. That's why I knew it was going to be important for me to be a part of and for my kids to see.
Absolutely. Well, Emma, Audra brings up an excellent point. You know, you've become a role model to so many young girls and women all over the world, and I know that growing up, Belle was someone you sort of looked up to. When you sort of began to sort of make her your own, what were sort of the things that you thought about in modernizing Belle?
You know, it's just to start, I mean, it's really remarkable to play someone that I'm almost sure had an influence on the woman that I have become. I think, you know, watching Paige O'Hara sing Belle Reprise, you know, it's kind of the I Want song of all I Want songs. And I just immediately resonated with her. I mean, I was so young, I didn't even know what I was tapping into, but there was something about that spirit, there was something about that energy that I just knew she was my champion. And I think when I knew I was taking on this role, I wanted to make sure that I was championing that same spirit, those same values, that same young woman that made me a part of who I am today. And so, you know, every time we would address a new scene that Bill or Steve or Evan had put together, you know, I just kind of went, I just always had the original DNA of that woman in mind, and and I had my fists up, I was ready to fight because she was so crucial for me, and it was just taking what was already there and just expanding it. And I love that in our version, Belle is not only kind of odd and doesn't fit in, and you see her reading, and you see her not really a part of the community. In our film, she's actually an activist within her own community. She's teaching other young girls who are part of the village to read, and moments like that where you could see her expanding beyond just her own little world and trying to kind of grow it. I thought I loved that, and that was amazing to get to do.
I think in bringing this to life, one of probably the biggest challenges would be creation of the Beast, because he's such a huge player. The physicality has to be so intense and large and specific. And I think the film does an amazing job, and Dan, you do an amazing job with that as well. And I'm curious, sort of, when you approached that, there's so much there. There's the face and the costume and the height. But did you approach playing him any differently than you would sort of, any other character you've played?
Well, it was a very physical engagement. I think just to support that muscle suit on stilts was a challenge that I'd never really encountered before. I've definitely been taking a more physical approach to my roles in the last few years and just training myself in different ways. I think with the backstory, we decided that the prince, before he was the beast, was a dancer, that he loved to dance. And so I trained myself like a dancer and learned, 3 quite different dances for this movie, and worked very closely with Anthony, just in terms of his general deportment, both for the prince and the beast, and there was a lot of work dancing in stilts. And getting to know Emma, first and foremost, on the dance floor was probably, I think it's a great way to get to know your co-star. And I'm going to try and do it with every movie I do now, whether there's a waltz in the movie or not. No, the trust that Emma had to place in me that I wouldn't break her toes. And also, it really became part of the, that sort of crucial part of the title, really, the and the bit, and that sort of the essence of a waltz being 2 people in this whirlwind, and learning about choreography, really, the storytelling through dance, not just getting up and dancing, but actually, really telling a very crucial part of the story and that big turning point. So, yes, lots of physicality.
When you have the title Beauty and the Beast, there is someone trying to keep those 2 apart, and Luke, that is Gaston. Someone once said that, villains never think of themselves as the villains in the story. They always think of themselves as the hero, and I'm sure that's especially true with him. I'm curious, what did you sort of clue into in his past or in building the character that made him more than a villain to you?
Well, I just think a villain shouldn't start out as the bad guy. A villain should end up being the bad guy. And I think with Gaston, outwardly, to a lot of people in that village, he is the hero. He's a bit of a stud. He's got the hair, he's got the looks, he's always impeccably dressed. Not a bad singing voice. He's got a great pal who makes everybody, support him and sing about him. And I wanted the audience to, in a way, I just thought, let's make them like him a little bit first, so that when the cracks start to appear, which they do very subtly, even from the door slam, there's something inside of him that he's like, I'm not used to this. This isn't how it goes. This is not what she's supposed to be doing. And although he keeps believing that Belle will change her mind, that's where the cracks appear in my thought process. And then slowly, the jealousy takes over, and who he becomes, especially Gaston, as opposed to other Disney villains. He has no book of spells. He has no magic powers. He's a human being, and he uses his status within that village to rouse a crowd, and he does it all from just being himself, which is quite terrifying in a way. And so I played on that. I played on the humanity of the character as much as he is larger than life. There was a lot to pull on, and obviously he was a war hero of sorts. We decided, didn't we, Bill, from the past? That's why his murals are all over the pub that he drinks in. And there is a slight soldier, this animalistic soldier in him, when he finally fights the beast on the rooftops. You see this man out for blood. And it's a scary moment to see the arc of somebody who was the lovable buffoon of the village to becoming the beast, almost, the monster.
Absolutely. Josh, we've seen you on Broadway, we've seen you in other musicals. We know you're very adept at singing and doing comedy. In this film, you get to ride a horse. How was the horseback riding for you?
Can I get Audra's question? Well, I'm going to get comfortable for this. So it's interesting. I learned a couple of great lessons on this movie. One of which is that Jews don't belong on horses. Specifically overweight Jews. My horse was an anti-Semite. He, interestingly enough, they would call action. And the horse that they told me was trained for this movie, but I believe they found in the wilds of England. Luke and I, our first entrance into the village of Villeneuve was to, this picture, by the way, is going to be so out of context. People are going to be like, what is for sitting like that? But I have very short legs. So Luke and I are walking into the village on our horses, and on action, all our horses need to do is walk side by side. It's so simple. Luke's horse does it. The two of them worked on The Hobbit together, 3 Musketeers, have this incredible background.
We share a trailer.
They share a trailer. Mine is a cold-blooded killer. And he proceeded to moonwalk. He walked backwards. Then he ran through multiple extras in the village, ran around, I didn't even know it was possible, but ran through these like pillars, around, up and back again. I heard cut, and I heard laughing. And the laughter was coming from the horse's trainer. And he came up to me and he goes, "I'm so sorry. I've never seen this happen before." And it was so sad. It made me feel so awful about myself. Ironically, my horse's name was Buddy. That is a true story. He's nobody's buddy. I'm begging Disney to press charges against him. And I've told my agents to never send me another script with a horse in it again. And
Unless it's on wheels.
Unless it's on wheels. In the sequel to Beauty and the Beast, I drive a DeLorean.
I'm liking these ideas. Well, I'm glad you're safe in here with us today. Gugu, I want to ask you, one of the most impressive things I think the film pulls off is it makes you really empathize and care about these inanimate objects. I mean, they're not inanimate, but they are objects. And for me, I think one of the most emotional moments of the film is when the curse is taking them over at the end and you're watching them say goodbye to one another. I mean, doing the voice work with that, how do you inject so much emotion into something, into a feather duster?
Yeah, it was an interesting challenge, and I was so obsessed with the original Disney film. It came out when I was 8 years old, so I was kind of really excited to be a part of this. And for me, it was, working on the French accent. Both myself and Ewan had the same dialect coach, and then just playing in the studio with Bill, encouraging us to, embrace that sort of inner child and that real sort of let's pretend kind of freedom. And for me, having done a few serious roles that year, to be able to embrace the feather duster, Plumette, and to also be able to really not be limited by your own face and your own body, that you can really, as I say, just play, was so joyful. And then again, when we all got to, be on set for that transformation sequence, and all these legendary actors are there, and, to be swirling around that Disney ballroom, it was just really, really magical.
Absolutely. We're going to open it up to your questions in a minute, but before we do that, Bill, I have one last question for you. There's been a lot of talk about the sexuality of LeFou this week. How do you feel about that?
I'm going to go use the bathroom.
I talked before about how we translate this into a live act. That means filling out the characters. It's also a translation to 2017, you know? And what is this movie about? What has this story always been about for 300 years? It's about looking closer, going deeper, you know, accepting people for who they really are. And in a very Disney way, we are including everybody. I think this movie is for everybody, and on the screen you'll see everybody. And that was important to me, I think, to all of us.
Absolutely. And with that, we'll go to your questions. If you just raise your hand, I think we have some mics. We can start right here in the, or there.
How do you feel about, you know, how we put a value on knowledge in society?
Gosh, where to begin? I mean, I think, first of all, thank you. You know, I think that Belle is this ultimate kind of symbol of the fact that books can be rebellious. They can be incredibly empowering, liberating. They are a means to travel, to you can travel to places in the world that you would never be able to, you know, under other circumstances. And I, you know, again, I was just really proud to play a character that, that, you know, she has a certain earnestness about her, honestly. And she's not in any way kind of ashamed of that, and it's not easy being an outsider, and it's not easy to pick battles. It's not easy to try to move and work against a system, to work against the grain, to move against the status quo. But she does so with kind of this amazing fearlessness, and you know, with the support of her father, but really I think it's something that she weathers on her own, really, at the end of the day. And yeah, it's just I just feel I'm very grateful that that this character exists, and that I get to bring her to life. It's fantastic. I hope I did an okay job of answering that. But.
Thank you. For our next question, I think it's here.
Hi, Tisha. And this question is for everybody. It's kind of a legend that the Beast name's actually Adam, and it's not. The animators and everybody have said that. I'm over here. And so I was wondering what you guys would name him if you could name the prince, because his name is not Adam.
I'd name it Prince Bill.
Good.
He's not called Adam? I didn't know that.
Well, I called Dan for most of the movie. I just called him Beastie.
Beastie.
Hi, Beastie. So
Sorry. I would name him Vladimir because I want to make friends with the Russians.
Any other takers?
Next question.
I think our next question is right here.
Hi, my question is for Bill and Alan. I'm right here.
Hi. Got it. Thanks.
I wanted to know about, you mentioned songs as storytelling devices. Working with Stephen and Evan to organically incorporate these into the film, how did that process work? How did you go about doing that?
Well, you know, let's take one example instead of talking about all of them. The song Evermore, the song for the Beast, you know? So this is, you know, they often say in musicals that people sing when it's no longer enough to speak, you know, that their emotions are running so high. I think it's one of the dramatic high points in all of literature, you know, the fact that the Beast at this moment that he lets Belle go becomes worthy of love, you know, and discovers what love is, but at the same time sacrifices his future, you know? Yeah. So we talked about the fact that we needed a song.
Right.
And of course, there had been a song in the stage adaptation.
In the Broadway show, there was
Right.
a song called "If I Can't Love Her," but you know, each iteration of Beauty and the Beast is a different medium in a way. There's an animated musical, there's a stage musical, and there's this, and they all have sort of different shapes. And a stage musical is definitely a 2-act structure.
Right.
So we wrote this song for the Beast because at that act break is the moment where the Beast, out of anger, has driven Belle away. And it was important, we needed that, at that moment for the Beast to sort of howl for redemption or just say, I've given up. But in the structure of a live action film, which is more of a 3-act structure, Bill felt, and I agree with him, that the more satisfying moment is the moment when the Beast lets Belle go because she's no longer his prisoner. And he loves her, and the spell will not be broken now, but at least he knows what love is. But was the question about that song, or was it about, in general?
Just in general,
Yeah.
how you worked with Evan and Stephen to incorporate these songs and.
Well, it wasn't so much, it wasn't so much them. It was, honestly, it was us sort of working out the moments
Yeah.
that we wanted to
And
musicalize,
the-
yeah.
You know, first of all, you know you have the initial tentpole moments from the animated movie, and those are going to stay. And then what we do is, as you put them in place, you look at it like an architecture. Where do we need the emotional support? Sometimes the songs will respond to a moment. Sometimes you'll go, I feel like we need a song in this spot, and we will massage the story so a song can fit there. I mean, it's not I could spend 5 hours talking about that right now, but essentially a lot of thought and again, use the word collaboration. A lot of collaboration goes into what song is going to come, where's it going to go, what does it need to accomplish, and how will it interact with the song that preceded it and the song that came after it? What will be the overall effect of it? What character is underrepresented in songs? You know, and so many factors.
Hello, my name is Cassandra Shaw from LA Times High School Insider. So this movie has the theme of not feeling like you quite belong. I mean, Belle feels that, the Beast feels that. Specifically for Emma, as a person who is on the verge of going to college, what is your advice for dealing with those feelings of being an outsider and feeling like you don't quite belong?
Gosh, I think what's difficult about the microcosm occasionally of school or sometimes colleges and universities is that you feel that the people that are in your immediate surroundings are the only people in the world, and that, you know, that I remember feeling at school that, you know, if I didn't fit, you know, there was nothing else. And that's a really difficult feeling. But I guess what I would say for anyone that feels like an outsider in their environment, there is a big wide world out there with so many different people with diverse opinions and perspectives and interests. And go out there and find your tribe. Go find your kindred spirits. And they do exist. They don't necessarily come easily. Pursue the things that you love and that you're really passionate about. They'll be there. But don't give up. They are there.
I believe our next question is right over here.
This question right here is for any of the actors that want to comment. We all have these songs permanently in our brains, but when you look at them, they're very challenging. The turns of phrases are amazing. They're in character. There's a lot to these songs. So if anybody wants to talk about when they realized, oh, I've got to work on this song or this lyric or this turn of phrase, like, does anyone have stories of like realizing, okay, this is not as easy as we think it is?
I remember first getting the call, and I immediately flashed back to being a kid. I was 10 years old. It was 1991, and I saw the movie in a small theater in South Florida. And I remember that the response was something I had never seen before, which was audiences applauding after these animated characters were singing these songs. That was very unusual. Prior to that, like, The Great Mouse Detective didn't have much applause when I saw this in the theater. And The Black Cauldron certainly did not. So, you know, what Ashman and Menkin brought to the Disney library was hearkening back to a time of the Sherman Brothers, of, you know, the early days of Disney. And that was, for us, that was so a part of our childhood. Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, and Aladdin, I cannot tell you how important that was. So I got nauseous. I was like, how am I gonna bring a song like Gaston to life? And I went into my office and I started singing it, and I literally started choking up, because you cut to like yourself as a kid, you think back to yourself as a kid, and you're like, oh my God, I'm doing this. Like, I'm doing this for real. And I'm gonna be the version that a lot of kids are going to see. And that was such a thrill. And my kids walked into the office and were so tickled that Daddy was singing this song that they know so well. And I thought to myself, this is gonna work. This is gonna work. We're gonna work at it, but we're gonna make it our own. And it was that first day that we did the table read that I remember watching Luke perform the choreography for Gaston. It took me a little longer to get it. And Emma performing Beauty and the Beast, and Emma Thompson performing the song, and all of these pieces coming together before our eyes. And I don't think there was a single one of us who didn't have goosebumps and wasn't immediately like, and of course, Audra, you know, singing is like for a private concert. Like, that is like the stuff that dreams are made of.
I think also an animated film was perfect. So I don't think Disney or anybody here or anybody involved with this live action film was like, we gotta fix Beauty and the Beast. So I think in that way the pressure was off. I think it was just, let's reimagine it now. Let's tell this particular version. So in that way the pressure was off. None of us were trying to, I certainly wasn't trying to be Joanne Worley. You weren't trying to be Pedro O'Hara or Robbie Benson or any of the characters. It was like, now it's our turn to tell the story, this incredible story that's been told for 300 years. But in that sense, I think the pressure is off a little bit.
As a tag on to that, my mantra throughout the whole thing is, don't screw it up. I mean, for myself. That's
Well, with that, I think we have to say thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to all of you for this film and for being here today. And have a wonderful day, everyone.